Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast producing badass.
I'm John Thomas. Some would say that I go a little too far with my love of all things horror, paranormal, and meta, but I say, talk nerdy to me, and I'm all yours.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our magical pals out there? In today's episode, we'll be returning to the world of runes, paranormal activity, and of course, amazing stories with special returning guest Diana Robertson. Welcome back, Diana.
Woohoo, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
This has been one of those things that, when we talk about planning our season, your name was like one of the first names I brought up. It's like, who should we bring back? I'm like, Diana.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I had fun last time. I remember we got through maybe not even halfway of what we said we were going to talk about. And I was like, we could have gone for another 3 hours.
It was such a good time. You're an engaging person to talk to. And it's one of those people where it's like, man, I wish she lived here.
Like I was saying before, it's like I'm an introvert's worst nightmare. I can just, once we make eye contact, we're like besties. And I will talk and talk and talk. I mean, okay, I can read the room. If somebody clearly, looks at me and puts in their headphones and then looks down at a book, I'll stop, I'll be like, I got you. If there's room in there, some wiggle room, I might bring you out of your shell.
I love that. Now, it's been a while since we talked. It's probably been about a year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
In that year, life changes. So, what's new with you? What's going on? Are we still doing TikTok lives?
No, actually, Runs and Ravens blew up on Facebook about 4 months ago. And I didn't have to go live anymore to get, readings in, to get consultations in, to do, all of my things, which was perfect timing. I swear it's like the universe was like, all right, we're going to burn you out to the point where you think you're not going to make it anymore. And then we're going to give you a new, thing, like a new way to move forward. And because I was getting to a point where, I don't know, going live was just so much pandering to people. And people were mean. Mm-hmm. I mean, people were extremely demanding. They were rude. They, would attack over, the most ridiculous things, misspeaking or saying the wrong word or, just any kind of mistake that, you could possibly make just through communication was immediately highlighted by somebody and turned into a big thing. And I'm just like, saying something, talking about something when I'm telling my own story of how, I overcame certain disabilities, and being able to move on with my life despite the disabilities that I had. I had people slinging, ableist at me, and I'm like, are you kidding? I'm telling you my story so that, those who are out there who are going through, the similar situations or something can see that what the doctor is telling them of you may never walk again, or you may have to walk with a walker for the rest of your life, or you just have to get, understand that you're going to be limited for the rest of your life isn't necessarily going to be your future if you don't want it to be, that there are steps you can take. And I immediately was attacked for that. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing. It's like people had just become so demanding and so offended, they were looking for things to be offended by. And it was just I would, think about going live and I would just immediately start, having anxiety, which I haven't had anxiety for half a decade. I know these feelings. What is this?
They ruined it for everyone else, because for me, that was probably one of my highlights of starting my day out, because usually when you were on, it was my morning. And so just hearing you, and you have this wonderful energy about you. You're kind, you're positive, you're funny, you share your stories, your journey. And so it's starting the morning with that positive inspiration. I loved it. And I am happy for you, though, that you went in a different direction? Because I did notice, and I do notice now, like, especially with TikTok, you do get a lot of trolls. You do get a lot of the keyboard warriors that are just, they're mean, like you said. And that can be a lot for content creators. That can be a lot for people that are putting themselves out there. They're people with feelings. And so I can see how that definitely can be. I wouldn't want to put myself out there like that, because I don't think I'd handle that very well.
Yeah. But I mean, it turned out well on Facebook, at least. I don't even know what it was. That it was just like a reel that I put up, and it, just took off randomly, and I gained like 25,000 followers in like a week.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what is happening? And it, like, that speed, kind of kept going, that growth kept going for a couple weeks. And so, I leveled out at 44,000 followers on Facebook, and it's all like, it's extremely interactive now. So, I am able to actually, take some time to interact with people properly, and to, kind of filter through the trolls that pop up every so often. But generally, I feel like I've helped more people in this last year than I have in maybe, the last 2 or 3 years combined. It's been wonderful just being able to kind of, spread myself out a little bit, take a little bit of time to, kind of make my schedule the way I need it to be, instead of working on like a, schedule every day and having to plan for going live every evening and being exhausted after working all day to go live too. But it seemed like with the way that things shifted and the way that I was able to kind of relax one part of my mind, it seems like all the weird, like, supernatural stuff kicked up in my life. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I'll take this.
Go on.
And that started last January. I think it was January 8th, or I don't remember. I think it was the 8th. I have it. It's on TikTok. I had a dream where, okay, so I do runes, I used to be majorly into Norse talk. And so, a lot of that community, knew who I was. But I never really put a whole lot of attention on the gods like myself. Like, it wasn't, I'm not a person who goes and does, deity work or anything myself. I don't do rituals. I'm just, I teach people how to do that in a way that fits, with their lifestyle and with their beliefs and whatever. But I personally haven't really, done a whole lot of that. And I had this dream one night. I might have actually shared this last time we were live, but where I was walking through this field. It always happens in a field, because I've had like 3 or 4 dreams of like the same kind of, it was like recurring sort of messages. But in this field, and I was like walking, and I look up to my left, where I saw this like really tall, like kind of bulky blonde guy, and was like, he kind of pointed up to this hill, like as like, like, go there. And I just kind of nodded, and I was like, okay. And so I started going up the hill, and in my mind, I knew that was Thor. And I'm like, when I woke up, I was like, Thor? Like, I don't know. I never knew anything about Thor. Like, I never put any time or thought into this. But so in the dream, I go up to the top of the hill, and he's already there. And there's this, table there in front of us, and he tells me that I have to choose the tablecloth to lay out for the people. And I was like, okay. And he like pulls this like rack over that had all these tablecloths that were like folded over hangers. And there were, different ones that none of them were like really exciting, like the tablecloths, And I know that I picked one that was like bluish purple, and it had like suns and moons on it or something. And I was like, but why am I choosing this? And he's like, because you've done a good job. And I'm like, in the dream, I knew that he was talking about Freya. And because I had experiences with Freya the year before, like, what the archetype of Freya. I was like, okay, so then, I chose that tablecloth, and I don't really remember if anything happened after that. I have to watch my own video to see. But the whole year, like every few months, I would have another dream where something, in that same kind of area was being told to me. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to take more time for this. And if I followed those instructions, I would get more views. I would get more, I would get seen more in whatever I'm doing. I would get more purchases. I would suddenly, getting more work than I typically had in my queue. And I'm just like, okay, this is a little beyond coincidence. Like, but then, I started having like medium experiences. I did have a few people from my old community that had passed this last year, not people that I personally like knew really that well, but because I'm the only person in the community who's, involved in any of this, I imagine maybe that's why they come to me through dreams, through like awake experiences while I'm, just walking around doing my own thing. But it's just like having
like the closest proxy.
Yeah, they're like, hey, here's this Romanian who knows us, who knows our family. Let's bug her, and then see if she could pass on the message or something, or just to feel some kind of, I don't know, whatever connection or something, or just who knows, whatever the reasoning is. But it's just, I have never claimed to be a medium, and so the fact that these things started happening so wildly once I was able to, like I said, relax that part of my brain where I had more balance when Facebook kind of took off, and I've been able to just kind of reserve some time every week, mostly every day, to end my day, like a normal work day, and then spend the evening with my family, or writing or doing my own thing. And that has had such a huge, it's made such a huge difference in my life, just mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But it's like opened all these doors. I'm like, it's like Halloween every day now over here.
That's amazing. How did the medium, because I know that's new to you, how did that present itself? Like, do you feel them, hear them, see them? Like, how is that being presented?
A lot of it has been through dreams where I have learned over the years that when I'm seeing somebody and they're looking the way that they did when they were young, or when they were healthy, or when I remember them most, that is typically some kind of a message coming up. My aunt died last October, not this last October, the October before, and I had a few dreams that just this last year. With her just telling me things, or kind of giving me a heads up of what's happening. And, then I would have other things like exploding head syndrome. Do you know what that is? Where you're like starting to fall asleep, and then you like hear like a bang or a scream, or somebody, calls your name. You kind of go, and you realize that it was in your mind. It wasn't actually, nobody else heard it or anything. Mm-hmm. That is one of like the precursors to an experience that I have, or something. It always happens when I'm like, I go to try to, take a nap or something, or trying to fall asleep at night, or waking up first thing in the morning. And there's something, that just crashes, or some kind of a scream or something. And when it's like that kind of feeling where I'm kind of in and out of sleep, then I know I'm like, okay, something or someone was trying to say something. And then I'll turn on my phone and I'll see somebody from their family had reached out. Somebody had said something like, hey, have you had anything recently? Or, hey, it's this person's birthday, and I was just thinking, and I'm just like, oh my God, like just the connections, of the, I don't know, it's almost like I guess you could say like an astral kind of reaction to things, or if you would call it astral, that like in between the living and the dead kind of arena of existence, is kind of like where something always happens. I hear something, but that, like I said, is kind of the precursor to things. I mean, I've had experiences where I have a sudden feeling of something, and then my husband, who is a medium, he'll come in and be like, "What'd you say?" And I'm like, nothing. Like, you said something. I'm like, no, I didn't. And I was like, what did you hear? Because I'm sitting there thinking, like, I was just thinking about this person who just died. Like, did I like draw something to me? And then he would say, well, it sounds like, if in this particular case, it was me when I was in the shower and I had poison ivy all over my arm. I had all these bubbles of poison ivy. And I was looking at when I was thinking about, like, should I just pop it and pour some rubbing alcohol on it or something just to get it, to dry up faster. And that's when he popped his head in. But literally seconds before that, I was sitting there thinking about my friend's mom who had died recently at that time. And that's when my husband popped his head in and was like, what'd you say? And I'm like, nothing. I'm like, what did you hear? He's like, it was a woman's voice It's like, what'd you say? And he said, don't pop it. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh my God, Leah, it's you. But it was just this like moment of like, because I was sitting there thinking of this, like I didn't say anything out loud. I thought I was, alone in my room. It's not like I sit there and sing, should I pop a poison ivy? Like, it's nothing, verbal or out loud that I say. So when he popped in with that, I was just like, I don't know if I'm made for this.
Don't pop it. Sounds like you are made for this. It's interesting you bring up the sleep states and the astral realm, because that has been, believe it or not, a very prominent message that keeps coming up in our conversations this season. And different people, different worlds, like completely different, it's not all mediums, all this, all that. It's literally different walks of life. And it's just funny. The same message keeps coming up about the sleep state and the in-between sleep state and the astral realm, and how that's connected to these different potential dimensions or different states of living or non-living. Like, it's funny as you talk about that. I'm like, here we go again.
Are they positive experiences or things where people are scared or where people are experimenting?
Both.
Okay.
But what's funny is how they're all kind of weaving together, because it's all different topics that are all kind of touching to the same world. So we have someone who really wants to do astral projection, and we started hearing messaging about, like the fact that actually occurs in the sleep state, potentially the sleep paralysis state. And like I said, it's funny because we keep getting so many of these different topics kind of leading right back into that. And it's like, okay, universe, what are you trying to tell me?
Yeah, you actually have to go into a state of sleep paralysis to astral project. When you get good enough at it, or if you're just naturally good at it, you skip that step. I refuse to do it because I get stuck in that step. And I have had it's just the craziest experiences with that I will go out of my way to avoid. And I think my last experience was last year, the year before last year, where I was essentially, something tried to force me into it, to drag me into it, literally. I was asleep, I'm just dreaming, minding my own business, asleep. And I suddenly woke up to this feeling of a hand over my mouth, and it was pulling me. So it's like I felt like my body pulling, but then at the same time, I saw my body from the corner of my eye not moving, as if I was here, and I had this hand like dragging at me, and I look over and I saw my own face there, and I'm like, no, because I knew what was happening. Like, in the moment, I realized what was happening, and I started trying to scream, but when you're in sleep paralysis, you can't scream. And so I'm just little like squeaks are coming out, and I'm just like trying to scream for help. And then I finally, I think my husband woke up first. So he woke up, and then I go, like I come out of it, and I'm just like, no. My husband's like, what is it? Oh wait, hold on. No, I think I was mentally freaking out, but I didn't want to wake him. So he didn't wake up yet. I remember now, because I had rolled over and I was like heaving, like just like freaked out about what had happened. And I rolled over because if you're laying on your back and your chin is up, like, especially if you put like a pillow under your neck or something, that's one step that you can do to help you induce sleep paralysis, to help you induce astral projection. And so if I'm sleeping on my back, then I'm, more likely to end up slipping into some kind of sleep paralysis or astral projection that I don't want to do. So I'm a side sleeper. At that point, for some reason, I was on my back. I guess I had rolled over at some point during the night. But so I woke up and I rolled over to my left, and I was like on the verge of tears. And I'm just like sitting here in my head, like, how dare you? How dare you? Like, whoever you were, how dare you? And then my husband started, like, when he has experiences in his sleep, his breathing like changes. Like it's like this weird like kind of like, just short breaths that are happening. And I'm just like, that's where I was just like, okay, there is something here. Something just tried to drag me into the astral. Now it's messing with him because I woke up and he like immediately like got up and he like sat up in bed and he pointed at the door and he's like, who is in here? He's like, what is in here? What is happening? And I'm just like, I don't know, but it tried to drag me into like astral or something. And we, laid down for a few minutes, and then like if I remember something, there was something with like the door opening or something like that. And he turned on the light, and we looked, and it was like the door had just moved a little bit. We're just like, why? Like, what had even sparked any of this? And then we went back to sleep. He went back to sleep. I couldn't sleep anymore. But then anyways, I had to get up to go to the kids. So then I went downstairs to wake up the kids, and I start hearing this whistling upstairs. And I'm like waking up the kids, and this whistling is just so loud. I'm like, what in the world? Josh doesn't whistle. And I looked at the kids, and I was just waking them up, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I don't know why he's doing that. And my kids are just kind of like, okay. And went back upstairs, and I was like, Josh, what is with your whistling? Like, I didn't even know you could whistle that loud. My kids had come upstairs, by then. And he's like, I wasn't whistling. And he's the only one upstairs at that time. And I'm like, you were whistling. I'm like, I even said to the kids, like I made a comment to them about it. And I looked at my daughter and I was like, he was whistling. She's like, I didn't hear anything. I just didn't know what to say to you. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, why would you just, like, what are you thinking? Mom's looking at you. You just woke up and first thing you hear from her is, I don't know why he's doing this. I don't know what this is. And you're not hearing what I'm hearing. And then my husband had pulled me aside and told me that he had, there's somebody that we know that whistles regularly like that. When they would come and stay with us, they would whistle around all the time. And he had told me that when I left and he fell back asleep, he was having this whole sleep paralysis, astral projection situation with some kind of entity that took the form of this person and kept trying to tell him things as if it was that person. And he's like, you're not this person. I know this person. I know them well. You are some lie, some illusion of it. I don't know what you want from me, what you want from us, but you need to leave us alone. And he told me that he had this back and forth. And I was like, he's the one who whistles. Like, what is, like, and I still don't know why that was happening at the time, but that was just one of the freakiest things where it was like, whatever it was, wanted to drag me in and then started harassing him and lying to him and trying to fool him into thinking it was, somebody that we knew. It was weird. I'm like, why?
When was that?
This was about 2 years ago. It was in this house. It was like the only experience like that negative that was in this house. Before this house, I was having regular situations where I was stuck in sleep paralysis, and I did I share it? I had a video I was going to share, like an older video where I was telling the story of me and my husband called them the Twisted Children. And it's like it's this entity that we both experience at the same time. And the kids who were, the rooms, down the hall would hear things like at the same time that we were, going through this experience. And it would always start with like, I guess the last one was, I would start with sleep paralysis. And when you're in that like astral kind of realm of things are like echoey. It's really like, it's loud, it's really overstimulating. It's like walking into a crowded cafeteria where everything's echoing. There's just chatter, And so it was like this chatter of like a cafeteria. And I was like, I couldn't move. And I was looking around my room. I'm like, oh God, I can't move. Like, how do I get myself out of this? And I heard the sound. It sounded like little toy cars being like run up the hardwood floors, right outside our door. And then you hear this like laughing of kids. And these two kids run by the bedroom door. And the thing, we call them the Twisted Children because as they run, like, it's such a weird thing because it's like you realize how fast they go, but it's slow motion at the same time. And they like turn their face and they look at you and their faces are like contorted and twisted and, messed up. And they go, and then the door slammed. like just slammed. And this is what the kids heard too, like, because they came running in afterwards, like, what's happening? Like, why did the door slam? Like, is everything okay? But the door physically slammed. And then the whole room fills with this, like, I'm still stuck in sleep paralysis and I can't really do anything. I had like some experience where, like, you know, I thought it was my daughter who ran up to, you know, my bedside. And I was over there, like, I was getting up, like, grabbing her chin, like, you know, or like, what, you know, what's that? Like, it's okay, you know? And then I realized I'm still in bed. I didn't get up. And I'm like looking around, and I sit up again. I look around, nothing's happening. And then I go again, because I'm like, I'm still in bed. Like, nothing is actually happening. And then my husband gets up, and after he's doing that, like, breathing thing that he does, and he's like, he starts gasping. Like, if you talk to a lot of people with, you know, sleep paralysis, they tell you about the hag that sits on the chest, or it's like the heaviness where it feels like you're being crushed. So he's going through that, and he, you know, shoots up in the bed and starts telling me how the room is just like he couldn't even see anything. It was so dark in the room, like it was so like it had filled with so much darkness that you feel like you're suffocating, you know. And he was going through that while I was going through the thing with the little girl. Like, it was freaking trippy. And I'm like, why does it happen at the same time? Every single time. When I'm going through something, he's going through something. And, you know, I'm like, whatever. That's like our little testament to how connected we are with certain things. But it's always with the astral realm of things. And so I refuse to go into it on purpose. He does it, like, just because he can. And he's really good at it. But I'm like, I don't belong there. I'm going to whole ass what I'm good at. I'm not going to half-ass anything else.
I'm with you. I grew up with sleep paralysis, and I do, like, anything that's presented itself to me during that is painful, it's scary, it's alarming. And so no, thank you. I am okay not being in that realm. And I want to point out that when you did the twisted children phase, your camera did like a warble. So
thank you.
At that same moment, and I was like, what the hell just happened?
I thought I was imagining stuff, so that's okay.
Nope, her camera did it did like a when a water droplet hit something, it did a warble.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. No, see, and I wouldn't ignore that, because I don't know if you recently saw my video about my Sweet 16, when I had these girls, like, they weren't, like, I can't really say like they were friends, because they were a group of friends, but I was just kind of a tag along sometimes I didn't really feel like I belonged to that group. They wouldn't, you know, invite me to things necessarily. But when I was having my Sweet 16, I wanted to have a sleepover. And so these girls kind of were like, yeah, we'll come. You know, they knew by then all of the gossip around church, you know, and all the craziness that I would go through. And at that time, I was dealing with a lot of shadow people all the time. And because I was raised in that Christian environment, I thought they were demons. Like, and so I would just call them demons, even though they weren't like doing anything. They were just like, you know, they like passed through my room like it was just, you know, like a door they had to walk through to get to the other side or something. But so they came over, and my whole life at that point was very active in like the spiritual, supernatural stuff. And so, you know, it was middle of the night, and they, of course, wanted to sit in a circle on the ground and ask questions about, you know, the things that they had heard. You know, we heard, you know, that you were seeing this and that you were having this kind of experience. You know, what was actually happening? You know, can you tell us about that? And I started telling them about the shadow people, and they're like, okay, we'll prove it. And I don't remember if I had said something, or no, because while I was telling them, like, I had suddenly the feeling that something was there. And they were like, and I told them, I was like, well, something's here now, whatever it is. Like, it's just kind of, you know, hanging out. And they're like, well, prove it. And then as like, I looked over in the corner, and then you heard the sound of like nails going down a wall. I mean, it wasn't like a quick thing. It was just like a, and they all froze and ran out of my room screaming down the hall. And it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I just kind of sat there, and I looked back, and I'm like, thank you. Like, at least they won't think I'm just crazy. And then I had to go and get them all rounded up, because I was going to get in trouble if they're screaming in the middle of the night. But
Well, your
but
twisted
that would always
children just
happen.
presented itself. So
yeah, that's worrisome for me for when I go to sleep.
Oh no,
I'm gonna have
just
to
kidding.
change
It's not them.
my place.
Actually, I have a story for you. I don't know, John. I think yes, I did mention this to you. So we were Day of the Dead. Around that time, we were talking about what is her name? Santa Muerte, and on the podcast, and she's like the saint patron of death. And that night, I went to bed, and it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and I felt like there's a hallway that goes down from my door, and I felt like someone was kind of like the energy felt like someone was waiting there. Like, have you ever gotten that feeling like something's like watching and waiting, like, hey, would you notice me? I'm right here, like curious and just waiting. And I'm like, no, because I have boundaries. Things aren't allowed in my room because of the sleep paralysis and stuff. So I'm just like, no, whatever you are, go away. And I'm not interested. Go away. So felt it kind of curious. Started to drift off, and I felt something at the bottom of my bed, like at the foot of my bed. And I'm just, as I'm getting sleepy, and I'm like, no, go away. And I fell asleep. Well, I woke up, and I'm a side sleeper. So I woke up facing my side table, and there was this figure crouched on top of my side table.
Oh, no.
And it's like black dress. Yeah, black dress, black hair, black flowing, and it lunged at me, like to grab me. And I screamed. So I knew it wasn't sleep paralysis. Because sometimes, I wake up in sleep paralysis, see stuff, and I'm like, okay, here we are. Gotta wake up. This was not sleep paralysis, and this felt so nasty. And it lunged at me. I screamed and I pushed away, but I pushed away with one hand. And for some reason, like it went to block, I reached around with my other hand. And my husband, he woke up and he grabbed me. Like he reached out and grabbed me. He grabs, I don't know how to explain it other than like we both knew to reach for each other at that moment. So he grabs me to firmly hold me. And like I was freaked out. Like it went away. But I couldn't go back to sleep for like an hour. Not because I was still scared, but because I could still feel it there. So I'm like, I can't see you, but you're still there. And so the next day he and I were talking, and he was like, what happened? I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, I don't know. You screamed really loudly. He's like, and when it startled me awake, but for some reason I got the feeling that you were falling. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I just got the sensation you're falling, and I grabbed you, but not falling off the bed. He's like, it just felt like I had to grab you or you were like gonna fall. He's like, and I don't even know what that means, but that's what I felt like. You were falling off like if someone were gonna fall off a cliff or something. And so I knew I had to grab you. And he's like, and the way you held on to me felt like you were holding on because you were falling too. And I'm like, I have no idea what that was. Now, that was November. So I think it was last week, I was talking to my kids in the car, and we were talking about different experiences because I try to normalize the conversation without scaring them. And my daughter brought up, hey, remember when you screamed in the middle of the night? What happened? What was that?
Gosh.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I did. And so I told them about it. And my middle son, who never really talks about that stuff, he listens, doesn't talk. He says, hey, I saw her before. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, what you just described. I've seen her before. And I'm like, where? And he's like, that other house we lived at when we were in California. He's like, I saw her outside of my bedroom. And she was waiting for me. So I'm like, I'm not leaving my bedroom. And he's like, I just thought it was a dream, but I've seen her. And I'm like, oh, wonderful.
That's so interesting. We have it might be like a generational, I don't know if you'd call it an attachment or what, but it's like where generations are seeing the same thing or having the same experiences. And I didn't know until well into my 20s that my family on my mom's side was having the same experiences I was having. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, why didn't you guys listen to me then? Like, if my uncle's having the experiences, if my grandma and grandpa are having the experiences, why would you not listen to me when I'm having the experiences? But, no, the kids, like what you were saying about, trying to normalize the conversation, it has become so normal in our house now that my one of my daughters had said something about, like, she wakes up to the sound of, like, it's like a man's voice, like, and he's like, kind of petting her cheek, just being like, it's time to wake up, honey, it's time to wake up. And we have, like, at the time that she's doing that, like, there's nobody, no adults are downstairs. I haven't gone to wake her up yet. And then her sister, who sleeps with us, they share a room. She one morning was like, I went to wake her up, and she was like, she said something about how she fell asleep on the couch. She's like, yeah, it was so funny because then Dad carried me downstairs, and I'm like, no, he didn't. It's like, you were asleep on the couch. And she's like, well, yeah, but then Dad picked me up and, like, carried me downstairs. Like, I looked up at him and I saw him and was like, what are you doing? And she's like, but I was too tired. Like, I could hardly even open my eyes. And I'm like, Crystal, we cannot physically carry anybody down the stairs. We have a spiral staircase. And with my husband's size and how big she is, like, that wouldn't be physically possible for them to get through this one, turn in there, because it's a pretty narrow staircase. And she just kind of stopped, and she's like, I didn't even think of that. She's like, then who carried me downstairs? And I'm like, I don't know. This is a question for the philosophers, because I have no idea. But
that happened to me as a kid in a house that I lived in when I was about 10. I would get carried from the couch back to my bedroom, and it felt like a masculine presence, but I was so tired I couldn't even open my eyes, but it felt like a man. And the caveat with that was we didn't have any men living in the house. So
Wow.
Yeah. Fun.
Oh, so it's creepy. I would have so many experiences as a kid. One of my first sleep paralysis experiences was when I was about, like, 10 or 11. And I woke up, and at that time I was having, like, shadow people experiences. Like, I was already, like, I would get scared. Like, it was just sort of that natural instinctual scared reaction that I would get. But it was like I was kind of an ass about it too. Like, I would recognize what was happening, and I'm like, I'm too tired for this crap. Like, I'm gonna try to prove this is wrong or something, or not real, or an illusion or something. And there was this one night where I was like, I woke up and I could hardly move, and I looked over and I see this, like, what I could only say looked like a shadow, but it was a block. It was like a giant square of just shadow in my door. And, like, you can see my door open. It was a white door. You can see the door frame and just this random black, like, block there. And I was sitting there looking at it, and I was like, no, like, this is not okay. And I started, like, kind of moving, like, trying to feel my body again. And I got to a point where, like, I partially pulled myself out enough where I fell off the bed and I started army crawling towards the door, just going like this. Go away! Like, trying to just wave it into non-existence. And I couldn't get close enough. And so I, like, turned around, and I was crying by that time because I was so exhausted. Like, I was trying so hard to move my body while I was in, like, this partial sleep paralysis. And I crawled back in bed. I put the blanket, and I remember looking over and just having such this, like, hatred towards the thing. Just like, I hate you. And I'm like, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I had, I guess, more gall than I should have as a kid at the time. It's like, what if that was an actual bad guy, and I'm just like
swatting at it,
swinging at it. Swatting, that's the word. I wasn't swinging, I was swatting like it was a bug. Get away!
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. I mean, terrifying, but funny.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that you have paranormal experiences outside of the home, or is it mostly in your home?
I have them occasionally, I guess, in other people's homes, sometimes, depending on who the person is. But yeah, nobody's ever actually asked me that question. Like, wait a second. I have it in my car.
Really?
Like, I remember when my husband and I, we were going to Salem, Massachusetts, and we had just entered, I think, I don't remember which city we entered, but we were in Massachusetts, and it was just us. It was like the first trip that it was just us, and we go up this hill, and I was driving, and I look up in my rearview mirror, and I suddenly have this like feeling of like a child in the back. And I immediately went like, oh my God, like I turned and I like startled and turned. He's like, you saw her, didn't you? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, who is she? Why? And he's like, I don't know. I think she's just a kid who died in the area. And it was just like, oh, hey, look, it's a mom and dad. Like, let me drop in. Like, she didn't want anything. But I'm like, we came on this trip specifically with no children for a reason. Like, that's not fair.
Kids are out of the car.
But that whole trip was, I mean, we went to Boston. We grave walked. Like, that was, and by the way, this was our honeymoon. We went grave walking in Boston. And we would go to all these, like, historical places. And there was this one graveyard we went to that was, like, it had graves from, like, the 1600s in there. And I was like, we went down to this like corner of, it was like the back corner of the graveyard where it was like this wrought iron fence all around it, and you weren't allowed in the graveyard. And we were standing there, and it was really cold. Like I know, like I had my hood up, and like we were gonna go eat or something, and my husband was like, all right, let's go. And I was like, wait a second. And I'm like, I feel like I had just seen something move by the tree. And I sat there and I looked at it, and like I just stared. And I don't know if you see that meme where it's like me trying to convince the ghosts that I can see it, and it's just like somebody just staring. And I was doing that, and I was just staring at it, and I suddenly felt this feeling of like a hand on my face, and it was like I could feel like because my face is cold, but it was like I could feel like it was so clear, like this little hand. And whoever it was short. Like it was like I had this like sudden image of this like person just kind of flash in my mind. It was a short little guy, you know. And I was looking at, like I didn't move. I looked at my husband. I'm like, something's touching my face. I was like, whoever it is, it's touching my face. I'm like, I can feel it. Like I don't want to move. This is crazy. It's like the most physical feeling ever. And that day I saw that a friend of mine. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mary the Medium. She's like she does like shows, or she's been on some shows and stuff where she talks about her experiences. She was just in the news like last year because she apparently found the body of somebody missing because she was told by whoever on the other side of where to look.
I remember
and
that.
She was just in the news for this. Yeah, and I had found out she was there just a few miles away from us. I was like, oh my gosh, Mary, we're here. Like we should get together, you know. And we ended up meeting that evening. And as soon as she walked in, she's like, oh, she's like, you have this short little guy who's following you around right now, you know. And she's like, he came from one of the graveyards, and she's like, he just thinks you're really pretty. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But she, like, I didn't even say anything to her. Like, I just walked in, and that was like the first thing where she's like, oh, okay, you have a friend. he thinks you're pretty. And I was like, he touched me. But, you know, I don't know who he was or what, but I think just the fact that I could feel something was just sort of like, all right, I'll come and hang out with them. It was fun. That whole experience.
I would not like to be touched by a...
Yeah, that was different.
I'm just going to put that out there. That would not be my favorite. We have so many friends and guests that have talked about, yeah, they touch me, they pull my hair, they do this. I'm like, no, I don't like when living people touch me. I don't want non-living entities to touch me either.
It's definitely a trippy feeling.
Yeah, and it's different than when something negative comes and shoves you.
Right.
Pulls your hair. No.
Yeah.
Not without dinner first. So that's a bad joke.
Kinky.
Hey. I feel that like it's a nice balance with my husband because he's kind of a buffer for that kind of stuff usually. So if something gets through to me, it's like, ooh, you must be pretty pretty big to be able to get through that buffer because he's pretty good at being a buffer. Although lately I feel like he's becoming more open. So he's less of a buffer. And I'm like, oh no, now what do I do? But for you and your significant other, your husband, like you guys are both pretty gifted.
It was a very interesting beginning. The way everything happened, but it's just how I function. I even had a dream of my ex-husband when I first, before I even met him. And I had a dream of circumstances around meeting my, now ex-husband. So at first I was like, okay, I had this dream later on of me being, it was like, how do I explain it? It was like 2 brick walls in this dream. So it was like a corner that was made with these 2 brick walls. And I was sitting against the wall, and there was like a street lamp over my head. And that lamp was just the light was isolated right there where I was. Like it was just darkness beyond the light. And I was sitting there, and there was people walking, and there were hands reaching out. Like you could see it coming into the light. Like it was really creepy. And I was sitting down, and I was putting my head down. I just I didn't want to look. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to do anything. And it was this sudden, realization or knowledge that there was somebody there. And somebody walks up, and I knew he was a masculine person, reached out his hand, and I was like, okay. So I took his hand, and I stand up, and I held on to his elbow as he walked me into the shadows. And it was all the shadow people were splitting away from him and wherever he would walk. And this was I don't know, a couple years before I met him. And I was like, who in the world was this? I knew that he had dark hair. I knew that he had light eyes. And I knew that he was taller than me and that he was larger than my, at that time, my husband. Like I said, this was years before I even met Josh. But and I was like, okay, that was not my husband, because my husband at the time was really tall, lanky, and had the most narrow shoulders in the world. He was really, really, really skinny. And this person was somebody who was you can tell he had broad shoulders. He was this, whatever, more muscular type. And I was I don't know who that is, but I guess I'm keeping an eye out. What does this mean? And but later on, years later, when I finally, I met Josh, he had told me we were starting to swap experiences. And he had told me about how he was kind of picked out by some psychic person who came up to him and told him that he was a talisman, against these entities, this negativity, and that they would, he could push away these things. And when he told me that, I remembered my dream, and I was like, oh, wait a second, because he fits all the, the description of this person. And then, over the years when we started having these experiences, it was he would be able to push them away. And he would explain to me how he would envision this light, and he would push it out, and whatever was there would go away. And excuse me, I talk a lot. I'm losing my voice. But he
was listening to you talk.
Yeah, I can go forever. But he was trying to explain to me, if something happens, he's if I'm not around, because we usually, have the experiences together. And he's you just have to envision this light and push it out. And I was like, yeah, okay. It was that sounds easy enough. And, a few nights later, we're going to sleep, and I start having, I guess just a quick aside, when I have experiences, before I have them, the sort of astral kind of thing or anything, supernatural, when I close my eyes to go to sleep, I see what looks like webbing, white webbing, and it goes outwards, it zooms out. And it's just this, whenever I close my eyes, I'm just God damn it, here we go. Now something's about to happen. And so I laid down, and I started seeing that webbing, and Josh was already fast asleep. And so I was like, okay, let me try this then. All right. So I just kind of laid there. And then, I start hearing like rummaging in my bathroom, which is like the door to my bathroom was right next to me. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to envision that light, push out that light, push out that light. And the noises started getting louder. Something like knocks over in the bathroom. And I'm like, oh God, okay. Push out the light, and then it was like the door opens. And I'm like, oh God, push out the light. Like I am pushing it out. And then my husband, like, he flies up and puts an arm over me. And he's like, whatever you're doing, stop, they're everywhere. And like I'm just like, I was trying to push out the light. He's like, you're bringing them in. Stop it.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Whatever you're doing, stop it.
I'm like, I was taking your advice.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. That would be me, though. I would think I'm doing something good and positive, and stuff is just going crazy.
Yeah, it was rough, and I'm like, I guess I'm not made for that. But I know that I was told a long time ago that I'm like a magnet. And so I'm like a magnet. He's like a talisman. Like, we're like a perfect, balance there. When I was like 20, oh gosh, what was I, 24, 25? No, it wasn't 24. I don't even remember how old I was. I just know that I was pregnant with one of my kids. And I was invited to be on this like ghost hunting group in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like, they had seen some of my content that I had put out back then. And which back then, like, I wasn't really like, nobody knew who I was. I was, still in the Christian community. Like, I was using my actual name. I had no ability to communicate with society on a normal level because I was in a cult. And so I was just like the weird person, that was like on the internet that somebody would, see occasionally. And at some point, I think on Twitter, I was just sharing an experience. And, like, I had been doing it for, I guess, a year or so. Like, it was just a regular thing that I was, like, putting out there. And then these people reached out and were like, would you come with us on a hunt? And they're like, because everything that I had said over the time that they had been kind of keeping an eye on was like, you're one of those people, like, you're this magnet that these things are going to be there. Like, if there's something in this haunted house, it'll come out when you walk in there. So we want you to come in. And I'm like, if I wasn't pregnant and had, like small children at home, because at that time I had that belief that I could bring something home with me, which I personally don't believe anymore. But I don't know. I just had this like fear that I was going to bring something home and all these awful things would happen, with my, to my kids or something. Little did I know that they were going to have things happen regardless. So not because I brought something in, but because they're my kids and it's a generational thing, But I knew my daughter Crystal, the one that said that she was carried down. She was the one when she was a baby. She was like 2 months old, and she would sit there and look in a corner of our room. Like, I would have her in a little swing, and I'd be like cooking, and I'd just hear her giggling, and I'd like turn around and look at her, she's like just around the corner. And so she was strapped in her little thing, and she would look at something and she would just, like that hearty baby laugh, that babies do, just as loud, like somebody's doing something hilarious. And I'm looking and she's just staring. And like, I kind of started walking slower and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And I just kind of watched her eyes and I could see her like, as if she was like watching something moving around. And then she would just do that like loud baby laugh again. And I'm like, oh, okay, she's seeing something. She knows something's going on. I'm like, she's, I guess, the next one. And it seems like it skips a generation. Like, my grandma had it. My mom didn't. I did. My first daughter doesn't have it. My second daughter does. My son doesn't have it, but my fourth daughter does. Like, it's like every other generation has these experiences. And I'm like, this is fun. But we talk about it so normally and so regularly that it's like, hey, yeah, this happened. Oh, yeah, some guy was walking around our room again, like, or some guy was walking down the hall again. We have a We call him David because that was the name of the guy who was related to the family before us, who died last year or the year before. I was having a whole lot of experiences, and I kept telling my husband, I'm like, there is somebody in this house. Like, he is a heavyset guy who smells like smoke, and he brushed past me while I was cooking, and I'm like, okay, too close. Like, no. And I yelled at my husband. I'm like, whoever it is. And at this time I didn't know his name yet. And I was like, at this point, I was like, Josh, someone is in this house. Like, I need to see the family that was here. Like, did they have a recent death or something? Because the dogs started noticing and were freaking out. The smell of cigarette smoke in the specific part in our, driveway, and the dogs would stop and whine and back up, and they'd kind of cautiously try to sniff and whine and step away again. And I'm like, something is here. And I had one night when I was in bed still, I had this feeling that this person was there, and it started smelling like cigarette smoke again. And I was like, all right, who are you? It was just one of those moments where I felt dumb because I'm out loud. I'm like, so who are you? Do you have a name? And I heard it was sort of like that. What do you call it? The exploding head syndrome kind of thing. Graham. And I'm like, Graham? I'm like, Graham, like the name Graham, or Graham like grandpa? And then there was nothing else, but it was that. It was that morning, later on that morning, I was making breakfast and he brushed past me, and I was like, okay, something's happening. And I went on Facebook and I found the family, the people that we bought the house from. And 2 weeks before that, the guy's dad had just died, and they had just had his funeral. He fit, I looked at the pictures, he fit the exact, the description of, what I was feeling, what I was, it's almost like you can see him from the corner of your eye occasionally. And there were pictures of him with his motorcycle, on the driveway where the dogs would freak out. That was where they would freak out. That's where, we smelled like smoke the most. And his name was David. And I was like, all right, David, now we know who you are. You're fine to hang out if you want, but your family's not here. They moved. It's us now. And I haven't had any experiences since I said that out loud, but apparently the kids downstairs, every one of them, they are all in different rooms except for the two girls. And they'll all say something like, that guy was walking around again, or we heard him, or we saw him, or whatever. And it's not even a scary thing anymore.
Sounds like Grandpa David likes to be more in the lower area of the house.
Yeah. And I wonder if there was something, I don't know what they necessarily did with the house when they were here, but who knows?
We had a Grampy ghost in California too, so we got used to him. We just called him Grampy. It's like, oh yeah, Grampy's here. Okay. Even the kids could sense him, and they're just like, yep, Grampy ghost is here. He smelled like cigars.
Yeah, one of my daughters is just at this point where she's like, something was trying to keep me awake. Something was trying to talk to me. It was shaking my bed. And she's like, I was like, what'd you do? Did you freak out? And she's like, nah, I just told him to leave me alone. I'm trying to sleep. I have to get up for school in the morning.
Good girl. Leave me alone. That's how I was. And then I woke up to the crazy hag.
That's freaking scary. That gave me the chills.
I hope to not ever see her again. I will say I felt something similar to her energy when I was pregnant with my first child, my daughter. I had a dream that, I felt the presence. And it was only when I was pregnant that I started to feel like something in the house wanted my daughter. And I'm like, that's weird. Am I just having a, hormone-induced kind of paranoia as my first child? So I have no idea. But I had a dream later on in the pregnancy that this entity came out of the closet and was rage screaming at me and clawing at me and trying to get at my baby. And I had reached my hands around because the baby was on the bed in my dream. I had reached my hands around, and my mom grabbed one hand because she was in my dream apparently to protect the baby on the side. And then someone else grabbed my other hand, but I never saw who it was. But in my dream, it's this is strength. This is family. This is there's some feminine energy over here that we're family, we're protecting the baby. And as this thing's like clawing at me and trying to get at the baby. But it was really weird because that energy that I felt, recently felt very similar, like just mean and nasty and like clawing at me. And I'm like, oh, are you back?
You're not pregnant again, are you?
No, I'm not pregnant again. I wasn't protected a baby either. Well, actually, Graham sleeps on the other side of me right now, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was specifically lunging at me. But I have no idea.
That is so interesting how it's like the whole hand grabbing thing. It's almost like, that's like that, sign of like, yeah, we're family, we're sticking together. But at the same time, it's like, was it the same thing that your husband was feeling where they're grabbing you to ground you, to keep you from, some kind of potential harm that this thing is bringing you?
I didn't even think about that. The significance of the hands with my husband grabbing my hand, because he's never done that. I've had nightmares where I've woken up startled and he'll like pat me or like it's very, you're having a nightmare, you're having a whatever. I've woken up punching the air because I'm having like a zombie dream and I get the pat, like it's okay, go to sleep. This was the first time he is like, he grabbed me and he grabbed my hand and he was holding on, and it's like, and I remember him saying, I've got you. And it's like, okay, what happened?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know. It makes me happy to hear that he's kind of opening up more.
Ish. He's my buffer.
I know, but like, I don't know. It's exciting to like have him go from like, no, I don't believe in this crap, to Grampy Ghost to here he is now saving you.
I think it was Grampy Ghost that opened him up more, honestly.
Probably,
because it was so irrefutable. Like, he's not, walk it back. His mom and his aunt told me how he used to communicate with something when he was a kid at this house. And like he would actively talk to this old man that lived in the house, apparently. And the mom's like, yeah, it was an imaginary friend. And the aunt's like, no, it was a ghost. Like, she mentioned an experience in the kitchen that happened with like the refrigerator door opening and closing. She's like, that was a real thing. And so I'm like, you're hiding, you suppressed it. You see it talk to ghosts. But when I met him, he's like, no, I don't believe in that. That stuff's not real. And I'm like, if you're going to date me, get used to it, because I'm a ghost magnet. And now it's just like, we all kind of normalize and talk about it. And my daughter mentioned something recently too, where she was getting ready in the bathroom. She gets up stupid early. She's just like, yeah, it was 5 a.m. and I was in my bathroom getting ready. And I'm like, why would you be up at that hour?
That's my daughter.
Yep. She's like, yeah, Mom, it was weird because I was in my bathroom getting ready and it felt like someone walked in and was just kind of trying to get my attention. But I didn't know what they wanted. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's just like, it was Grandpa Joe. And that's my husband's dad. He passed away in 2007, I believe, or 6. But so she's never met him for her to have reference. But in her head, she told me, I just felt it. I just knew it. Grandpa Joe was checking in. And I'm like, why would you say that? She's like, I don't know. That's just what I feel. And I'm like, all right, run with it. Like, don't question yourself. If your intuition tells you it was Grandpa Joe, it was Grandpa Joe. So that was kind of interesting.
I love that. I love when kids get comfortable around that kind of stuff and are feeling like they're safe enough to talk about it. Like, because I couldn't.
Same.
It's like, but I knew what was going on, and some of it was just so, like you said, irrefutable. There was so much happening that there was no way that it wasn't actually happening. And even now, like this year, I told my husband Josh, I'm like, this year has been the same energy of when I was 14. And 14 was my biggest year when it came to spirituality and to supernatural experiences and stuff. And I'm like, this year is probably even more intense than that year was. And that is saying a lot for me.
That's pivotal. As parents, we watch, especially if we if we believe in gifts and we exhibit those, we wonder, is that going to manifest in our children? And we watch our children. And I watch all 3 of mine to see, like, I don't want to lead them in terms of like, do you feel this? What about that? If they bring stuff up, I normalize the conversation about myself. And if they bring stuff up, we talk about it. But yeah, it's interesting to see like what they talk about. But it seems like for a while, it's like, okay, they've gone through this phase where life just seems normal, but then they talk normal, in the status quo term of the sense. But it does seem right now that the older two are starting to talk more about stuff that they have experienced in the past that they didn't talk about. And I'm like, oh, so you do have gifts. A lot of my experiences have not been positive growing up with that world. And maybe it's because of my own, projection of vibration onto things. I don't know. But so yes, that carries a level of worry because I'm like, oh my gosh, every kid's going to go through that. But I don't want them to be unprepared if stuff does, if things do manifest. I want them to have positive feelings so that they're better equipped than I was. Because oftentimes I feel like the reason mine were so negative is because, similar to you, I grew up in a religious Bible belt that taught me, supernatural's evil, paranormal's evil. It's all demons and heathens. And so I don't want that to be the same route that they go if they do experience things.
Yeah. It was funny this last Halloween. I'm going to get judged here, but I got a Ouija board because I don't believe in the Ouija board. I don't believe that is as, big and powerful as, people think. I've been playing with Ouija boards since I was like the 7th grade. And I pulled it out. My daughter's looking at me. My daughter, Crystal, the older one who has, the experiences, and I like showed it to her and she's like, Mom, why would you bring that to her house? I'm like, I've been playing with this since like 7th grade. She's like, and you're the one who has all the freaky experiences. Don't you realize? And I'm like, maybe you're right.
Ooh, she told you.
I never quite put 2 and 2 together, but I'm like, but at the same time, I was having experiences before I played with the Ouija board, so it's fine.
Don't you love when your kids outlogic you? I'm like, hey, we're not there yet. Oh man, that's funny.
See, it's crazy. This year was actually the year where, I had all this crazy stuff happening, and like more than once, I'm like laying there in bed and I just kind of like roll on my back and I look around and I'm like, can I have a dream tonight, please? Like something to give me some kind of direction, something to, kind of let me know what I need to do. And then I end up having a dream that night that is extremely symbolic. And I'll get up in the morning. I'm like, wow, really? Just because I asked? Like, could I have done that my whole life?
We hear that. We get told that. Like, just speak to your spirit team, speak to the universe and ask. And I keep asking. And maybe I'm blocked.
I'm just like, but what happened this last year that suddenly, this happens? Like, I don't know. It's just like a year of awakening, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered.
And I love seeing your Facebook group grow. And I do miss you live streaming, but I love, love, love that your Facebook group and your readings and all the services you provided are taking off. I try to chime in where I can when I see the posts, but algorithm doesn't always show me the people I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, I don't know, maybe after New Year's, like I can start doing just something, but not readings on live anymore. Just, I don't know, chat sessions or something.
Are you still doing the rune readings?
I do rune readings. Like I use runes for my everyday readings. Anything that I have in my queue, I'm always using runes unless I'm, I have like a seer session or something. I have, they're like my main tool besides, or they are like the number one tool. And then I have a runic tarot deck that I use. But besides that, it's just all in my head. I see flashes of things and I'm like, oh, I just saw this. Heads up.
They're just kind of the auxiliary tools. You're the conduit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I made a video about this one time where it's like people, like I don't have to use tools. I could just use my mind, but for some reason people will be like more quick to accept what I have to say if it comes from a rock than if it comes from me, a human, you know? It's like they don't want a human experience. They want some kind of divine experience from something inanimate.
Right. I want the rock to tell me.
Like I do now, the runic seer sessions is what I call them, where I have a section where it's with runes, you know, but I have a meditative point where I have the person send me a recent photo of themselves, and usually they'll just snap a selfie and send it to me. And my only rule is that nothing's covering their eyes. It's like I need to see your eyes clearly, your face clearly, like, and you know, and it needs to be recent, nothing from like 2 years ago. And then I do like I kind of, you know, take in their face mentally, and then I go into meditation, and I start just picking up on stuff. You know, I start seeing like symbolic like imagery of items or places or people, and I'll write it down in a notebook. Like I have my notebook on my belly, and I'm just, you know, I have my eyes covered, and I'm writing down what I see. And then when I get up, then I translate everything. And there's always some kind of theme or connection that goes into it. And then I do a face reading as well, where just by looking at their face, you know, for a longer period of time, I sit there and do what I do with my brain and pick stuff up.
My brain.
I'm like, I wish I knew how this worked. Like I was just saying to Josh yesterday, I'm like, I freaking wish I understood this. I'm like, I do not understand the way that like I'll see something and I'll tell them what it means symbolically, like in, you know, if I would have seen it in a dream, or, you know, what it means in a vision. And I'll tell them what kind of person it represents, what kind of issues it represents, what kind of time frame it, you know, can be expected in. And then they'll reply back with something extremely specific. You know, like I did one reading one time live while I was on TikTok for somebody who she was going into surgery. You know, and she was like, I'm, you know, planning on this month. And I'm like, I don't do health readings. I'm like, but something tells me like you're going to have another month. Like you're going to move something. You're going to talk to a different doctor. They're going to give you some other advice or some other kind of indication something else is going on. And you're going to change your, you know, whatever your appointment from like October to September or something. And then I completely forgot about that reading. And then like half a year later, she comes back and is like, just so you know, it went exactly as you said it was going to go, because she had gotten moved to another doctor or something. They did some other test, and they're like, no, we can't do that. If we do that, it's going to be bigger issues, and we need to do it this other time. It was just something crazy like that. I'm like, where did that even come from? Like, it wasn't even something that the card said or something. It was just like a random, like, oh, just so you know.
But maybe that's the benefit of not completely understanding it, right? Because you're not, then you don't overthink it and you don't overanalyze it. You're just like, this just is. And so you're able to receive those messages in their purity. I don't know.
It's so trippy sometimes, the things that I'll pull for somebody. Like, you know, if I'm talking to regulars, you know, I'll have like, you know, a regular who, you know, I've been doing like the same issue for, you know, over the course of like a year. So like I know this person well. And then I do another reading for a different regular who I know them well. And it's like the cards match exactly, like they're total opposites. One's going through a really dark period. The other one's going through like a super, you know, frolicking through the fields with rainbows and flowers, you know, life. And the cards match exactly. And I'm like, how the freak do you do this? Like, I'm not looking at the cards. I am shuffling wildly. How is this happening? Like, I don't get it.
That's funny.
But I love it.
I love it. I love talking to you. How did this time fly? I don't get it.
Seriously, it's already an hour and a half.
Look at us. We're amazing. I remember when we came into this, it's like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. Let's wing it. I think, how would you even say that? We wung it well.
You wung it well.
We wung it.
We wung it well. It's been wung.
It's been wung, yep.
Everybody wung.
Wung Chang tonight. Just joking.
Wung Chang, we just reverse it instead of Wing Chang. Everybody Wung Chang tonight. So, Diana, if people want to reach out and work with you, where can they find you?
Facebook. that is going to be just type in Runes and Ravens and you're going to find my page. It's the one that is like at least 44,000 followers. You will probably see other ones that are like 1,500 or 2,400 or something, but those are scammers. I don't know how they are doing this, but they block me, so I can't see them. I just get 6 messages every other day with screenshots of these Facebook pages and Instagram pages. But that's going to be the best place besides Etsy. Etsy's where I do my stuff. So it's just runesandravens.etsy.com.
So Etsy and Facebook. And this is a good time to remind people we bring guests on and they're amazing, especially Diana. And all of them have something very similar in common, that if you want to work with them, you reach out to them. They do not message you for readings. So if you think you're not sure if it's a scammer or not, just remember, they don't message you for a reading. So good indicator.
Yeah, and people are like, they leave comments on some of my posts and they're like, can you DM me? I'm like, can you DM me? Because there's too many issues and I'm telling everybody I don't DM first. You DM me and then we go from there so that you're not getting confused. If you need me to write on a piece of paper my name and the date and take a picture, I will. Because too many people have been getting scammed in my name and it's sad. It's very heartbreaking.
It is. It's unfortunate, but we are so appreciative of you coming on.
But thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. All right, John Thomas.
All right. Thank you again, Diana, for coming on. We've got to have you on again sometime sooner within a year, not another year. And thank you to everybody for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And if you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss amazing guests like Diana.
Until next time. Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.